What happens when one of Britain's most beloved actors comes face to face with a host who crosses every line imaginable? You won't believe what unfolds when Sir Ian McKellen sits down for what should have been a simple chat about his latest theatrical venture, only to find himself under attack in the most shocking way possible. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because you're not going to believe what unfolds. Last night's episode of Lorraine started innocently enough, with Sir Ian McKellen settling into the familiar bright yellow sofa, his trademark warm smile greeting the morning television audience. The legendary actor, now in his 80s, had agreed to appear on the show to discuss his upcoming return to the stage in a new production of King Lear. What viewers witnessed instead was one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. The tension began almost immediately when Lorraine Kelly, rather than opening with the expected pleasantries about McKellen's illustrious career, launched into what can only be described as an ambush. "Ian, lovely to see you. But I have to ask," she began with that deceptively cheerful tone viewers know all too well. "There's been quite a lot of chatter online about whether actors your age should still be taking on such physically demanding roles. Don't you think it's time to step aside for younger talent?" McKellen's expression shifted instantly, the warmth in his eyes replaced by a flash of surprise and disappointment. "I'm sorry, Lorraine, but I'm not quite sure I understand the premise of your question," he replied, his voice measured but clearly strained. "Are you suggesting that age should determine an actor's worthiness to perform?" Rather than backing down or clarifying her intent, Kelly doubled down with characteristic ruthlessness. "Well, let's be honest, Ian, you're 85 years old. Audiences today want to see fresh faces, vibrant performances. Aren't you concerned that you're simply holding on to roles that could revitalize the careers of younger actors who are struggling to break through?" The studio fell unnaturally quiet. Even the usually bustling production crew seemed to freeze as they watched one of Britain's greatest living actors being subjected to what amounted to ageist harassment on live television. McKellen straightened in his seat, his decades of stage training evident in his composure despite the obvious affront. "Lorraine, I've been acting for over 60 years, McKellen responded, his voice growing stronger with each word. "I've earned my place in this industry through dedication, craft, and continuous learning. The suggestion that I should step aside simply because of my age is not only personally offensive, but represents a dangerous precedent for how we treat our senior artists." Kelly, seemingly oblivious to the gravity of her words, pressed forward with relentless persistence. "But surely, you must see how your generation is taking opportunities away from younger performers. There are talented actors in their 30s and 40s who can't get leading roles because establishments keep casting the same old faces." The camera captured McKellen's hands gripping the arms of his chair, his knuckles whitening with barely contained frustration. "The same old faces?" he repeated, his voice rising slightly. "Lorraine, are you suggesting that experience, wisdom, and a lifetime of honing one's craft are somehow impediments to good storytelling?" What happened next sent shockwaves through the studio. Kelly leaned forward with that predatory smile viewers have come to recognize when she's moving in for the kill. "Ian, let's talk about something else that's been circulating. There are whispers in the industry that some of your recent performances have been, well, let's say less sharp than in previous years. Critics have mentioned forgotten lines, missed cues. Don't you think that's a sign it might be time to gracefully exit the stage?" The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. McKellen's face went through a series of expressions: shock, hurt, and then a steely determination that those familiar with his most powerful stage performances would instantly recognize. "Lorraine, I'm going to stop you right there," he said, his voice now carrying the full weight of his theatrical authority. "What you're doing right now is not journalism. It's character assassination." Kelly seemed momentarily taken aback by the directness of his response, but quickly regrouped. "I'm simply asking the questions that viewers want answered. Ian, isn't that what good television is about? Good television?" McKellen's voice carried a note of incredulity. "Good television would involve discussing my upcoming performance, my thoughts on bringing King Lear to life for contemporary audiences, or perhaps my reflections on how the character's themes of aging and relevance resonate in today's world. Instead, you've chosen to attack my competence and suggest I'm somehow stealing opportunities from younger actors. The confrontation reached a boiling point when Kelly made what would prove to be a fatal error in judgment. Well, Ian, if we're being completely honest here, don't you think some of your recent advocacy work has also been a bit outdated? Your approach to LGBTQ+ rights, while admirable in the past, seems rather old-fashioned compared to what younger activists are achieving. The studio fell into absolute silence. McKellen, who had spent decades fighting for LGBTQ+ rights long before it was fashionable or safe to do so, slowly rose from his seat. His eyes, now blazing with righteous indignation, fixed on Kelly with an intensity that seemed to cut through the television screen. Outdated? McKellen's voice was now carrying the full power and resonance that had commanded stages across the globe. Lorraine, I came out publicly in 1988, when doing so could have ended my career. I've spent 37 years fighting for rights that younger generations now take for granted. To suggest that my advocacy is outdated is not just ignorant, it's profoundly disrespectful to every person who paved the way for today's freedoms. Kelly, perhaps finally realizing she had pushed too far, attempted to backtrack. Ian, I didn't mean to suggest. No, Lorraine, you meant exactly what you said, McKellen interrupted, his voice cutting through her weak attempt at damage control. You've spent the last several minutes systematically attempting to diminish my contributions to both theater and social justice. You've questioned my mental acuity, my physical capabilities, and now my relevance as an activist, all while presenting it as legitimate questioning. The legendary actor began gathering his belongings, his movements deliberate and dignified, despite the obvious emotional turmoil. What you've demonstrated today is exactly the kind of ageism and disrespect that plagues our industry. You've taken a platform that could have been used to discuss art, creativity, and the ongoing fight for human rights, and instead turned it into an exercise in public humiliation. Kelly made one final desperate attempt to salvage the situation. Ian, please sit down. Let's discuss your upcoming performance. I think there's been a misunderstanding. McKellen paused at the edge of the sofa area, turning back with a look that could have frozen hell itself. There's been no misunderstanding, Lorraine. You've shown your true colors today, and they're not particularly flattering. I came here to share my passion for Shakespeare with your viewers. Instead, I've been subjected to what can only be described as professional harassment. As he moved toward the studio exit, McKellen delivered his final, devastating blow. You know, Lorraine, King Lear is a play about an aging monarch who loses everything because he cannot distinguish between honest counsel and flattery. Perhaps you should read it sometime. You might learn something about the difference between asking challenging questions and simply being cruel. With that, Sir Ian McKellen walked off the set, leaving Lorraine Kelly sitting alone on her bright yellow sofa, the studio in stunned silence, and viewers across Britain witnessing one of the most dramatic exits in television history. The camera lingered on Kelly's face, capturing what appeared to be genuine shock at the magnitude of what had just transpired, before cutting to an awkward commercial break that couldn't come soon enough.